All right, we are live, gentlemen. So first of all, welcome LinkedIn world. Welcome Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're watching from. We're glad you're here. Ricky J and I, was it this week, gentlemen? Or was it late? It was this week
No, it's on
that we
Tuesday.
had. So on Tuesday, we had a conversation about
Tuesday.
the fact that there's a lot of people out there that stop their job search during the holidays. And we were thinking to ourselves that is just a bad idea because there's a lot of reasons for people to continue their job search through the holidays. We're going to talk about the top 10 reasons that we came up with. But first and foremost, what I would like to do is remind everyone who's joined us here, please ask questions. We want this to be interactive. So please, if you have questions, if you have comments, anything that you want to share, please share that. But first of all, let me have my fellow panelists here introduce themselves. So Ricky, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, thanks, Alan. Ricky Polloy. I am the founder and CEO of Ream Recruiting. We specialize in direct hire permanent placement positions in the healthcare field, doing mostly leadership positions, so anything from management all the way up to C-suite. And we're about to have our 6th year anniversary in March of next year. And just looking forward to having this conversation with you guys.
Excellent. And Jay, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, Jay Vennard, founder and CEO of Ventex Search. We've been recruiting in the industrial automation and manufacturing industry since 2017. We focus and specialize mainly on sales positions. So anything from a sales development rep up to a chief revenue officer, with probably about 60% of our placements being in the individual contributor, sales engineer type of sales role.
Excellent. And Rachel, thank you for joining us from Seattle. We're glad you're here. It's nice to finally interact with you a little bit in a different format. I appreciate all the comments over the years. But so I'm Alan. I own a company called Phoenix Staff. We are primarily information technology, but I also do a lot of executive recruiting. I started that in January of this year. Going to be continuing that going forward. And I think the big thing that we need to answer, gentlemen, for anyone who's watching this, whether it's today or next holidays or any time throughout the year, as you were just saying, Jay, we are having interviews conducted yesterday, today, Monday, all the way through the holiday. We've got an executive doing a real estate tour around where his job is going to be, where he's just accepted the offer. We have a lot of activity, a ton of activity going into the week after Christmas. And I'm curious, Jay and Ricky, if you guys are seeing the exact same thing.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing it. We are very busy right now. And, I think the one thing that a lot of people have to realize is that a majority of the people you're competing against for the jobs, they're taking their foot off the gas. So it becomes really important to put your foot on the gas and really start moving forward, make yourself available, do the interviews. If a company wants to interview you the day after Christmas, make it happen. I mean, we've got an interview happening with one of our clients and a candidate the day after Christmas. And it's a perfect time because, companies have budget that they have to spend before the end of the year. So they are moving quickly and aggressively. And I think that's going to really accelerate come January when that Q1 budget comes in for hiring. Ricky, what do you think?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly, Jay. I'm seeing the same thing. In fact, Alan, you mentioned you had someone with the real estate agent. We're doing the same thing right now. We have a client that is out in Washington State that had flown in, and she's actually interviewing right now in person from Atlanta, Georgia. So she's with the real estate agent as well, dealing with all of that and just for the next step. So we're also seeing where a lot of the people want to get it done. The senior executive leadership wants to get things done before the end of the year. So that way they can start off in Q1 ready to go, especially with some of these, very specific hires. Like we're working on a deputy chief financial officer position where we're down to the final rounds of interviewing. And we should have a decision here probably either today or early next week on if they're going to move forward. So there's still a lot of movement going on right now.
Nice. Maybe we should have a realtor on. Maybe this is like the best time to shop for a house too. Who knows?
Yeah.
We just got a question from somebody that I want to address before we get into our top 10 list. And I encourage everyone who's here, please ask your questions, because our top 10 list can go to the side, and I'd much rather spend time answering your questions. But Anthony, who's joined us, asked a question: is there just a ton of competition right now? And is that why he's seeing a lot of his friends struggling to find work? So I'll turn it over to you guys, and then I'll answer.
I'll go first on that one. No, there's not a ton of competition. And really,
in your space, I think that's critical. In your space, you're not seeing
right.
that.
Yeah. Thanks for clarifying. Yeah, in our space, there's not a ton of competition. We're talking to people, hundreds of people every week, and the consensus is that a lot of people just kind of want to wait and see. Oftentimes, that's driven by year-end bonuses. So they're just kind of waiting and seeing, and they're going to wait to maybe make a move at the first of the year. I think that's the worst mistake you can make, because when the new Q1 budgets come in, especially moving into 25, which I'm kind of predicting is going to be a monster year for hiring. I think it's going to be, and this is, people listening are going to think this is so cliche. There is going to be a war for talent in 2025. I think it's going to be similar to the boom we saw post-COVID. So while there may seem like there's a lot of competition, I don't think that's the case. And really, when you kind of think about competition, how are you separating yourself? Because if you're just going in and applying to jobs online, yes, there's going to be a ton of competition, because that's what everyone's doing. If you want to stand out, then you need to, number one, make sure your resume is on point. Make sure your resume is full of accomplishments. Think of it from the hiring manager's perspective. What can you do for that hiring manager to make them look good? So for me as a sales recruiter, if you're sending me a resume, I want to see how, revenue numbers, how many times you've surpassed quota, how many times you've been in President's Club, because that's what the hiring manager is going to look at. And then the second thing I would say, depending on, what type of position you're looking for, try to figure out who the hiring manager is, or even the HR person at that company, and reach out to them directly, because you are going to be one of a few that does that, rather than being one of many who applies to a job online.
Yep, I agree. Ricky, what say you?
Yeah, so I'm kind of, it depends on the situation, right? And Anthony, I don't know exactly what, industry you're in, what that looks like. And it's going to depend on what type of role you're wanting as well, right? So we do specifically healthcare, anything from clinical, administrative, operational, and then in different industries as well. But we tend to focus on companies that are a little bit more difficult to fill positions for. So some of your rural or critical access hospitals, or behavioral health, psych units, things like that. And so depending on the company, depending on the position, those tend to be pretty, there's not a ton of people that are going out for those positions. So you can normally find some people. Now, the other side of it, and I think, Jay, you alluded to this, but when you're applying to all these jobs, especially, and I know we didn't mention this yet, on the recruiting side where we're talking about anything remote, then yes, you are struggling at that point, because not only are you competing with people that are in that company, in that state, but then you're also competing with everybody else throughout the country. And that's where, like Jay said, go and try to differentiate yourself. One of the things I told a candidate of mine was start applying, not only applying, but as Jay said, contact the hiring manager, contact, the CEO of the company, but also start posting on LinkedIn. Start answering questions to some of these people that are putting posts out there. Because if they can see your name, the more, vision that you have, the better off you're going to be for someone to, basically look you up and try to find you, especially like a company like us who are headhunters and trying to find people. That would be probably the biggest things I would say at this point.
Yeah. And I would echo everything that both Jay and Ricky just said. I would also say, Anthony, in response to, is there a ton of competition right now? I would say there's a ton of noise. There's a ton of static.
Yeah.
So in my personal experience, based on the roles that we post, we get hundreds of applicants, sometimes, 800, 900 applicants. I don't know that we've had any role that we've posted that has hit 1,000, honestly, but it's a lot of noise. It's a lot of people who are very inadequately, inappropriately, not even remotely close to qualified. So that noise is disruptive of, an agency like ours who tends to look at every single applicant that applies. And when you do that, when you don't have an AI bot or a tool that goes through and scans those resumes, when it's eyeballs of recruiters, of live people looking at each and every one of those, that's the competition. So in order to get to the 25 to 55 people that are actually qualified, I've got to go through and fish for all of the qualified resumes out of all the other static people who are in need, obviously, of finding a job, but aren't remotely close to what we're looking for that specific job. So that's more, I would say, the competition in my world than actual people who are equally qualified or equally skilled in the area that we need them to be. Thanks for the question, Anthony. Any more? Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Well, what I was also going to say, Alan, was something that just triggered in my mind was when these companies, because I don't normally post jobs too often. Most times we're headhunting and sourcing and looking for candidates because the companies that we work with normally are already posting those jobs. And again, sometimes we will, but ultimately, if let's say these companies are posting these jobs and they are getting over 1,000 applications, would a hiring manager or the recruiter that's going through 1,000+ applications rather just have someone that reaches out to them directly and says, hey, you're a good fit, I don't have to go through all 1,000 of these? Then that will sometimes happen because some of these internal recruiters have 20, 30, 40, 50 requisitions or jobs they're working on. And it's almost impossible to get through all of those and actually view all of them. And then on top of that, like you said, you're getting the people that are applying that aren't even close to the specific job, requirements.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I'm going to add something to that too. I think we can, all be real here. There is not, and I hope I get challenged on this. There is not one internal talent acquisition team. There is not one HR team that can tell me that they are actually reviewing all 1,000 resumes, because like Ricky said, it's not just one job that they're getting 1,000 applicants for internally. It's multiple jobs. So what ends up happening is, and this is the dirty little secret that no one will talk about, is that when you apply internally, the chances are that they're probably only going to review the first 100 and hope that they can find 3 or 4 resumes from that first 100 to move to the hiring manager for that position. So one of the things that I think about here, and I'm removing myself from being a recruiter. If I was a job seeker right now, either looking for a new job, but especially being unemployed, one of the things that is kind of, it's kind of a revolution right now in recruiting is, one of the top recruiting trainers out there just recently said, what's old is new. So what does that mean? Well, everyone is reaching out digitally. Why not put your resume in a manila envelope, spend $2 for the envelope and the postage, send it to 3 different people at that company. Let's just say, for instance, you're going for a sales job. Send it to the VP of sales, the CEO, and whoever the head of human resources is. All 3 of them to the same exact company, handwritten with their name. Send it to their company. How many people are doing that? 0. You will stand out if you do that. It's not going to guarantee you that you're going to get the job, but it is going to guarantee you that someone at that company is going to see your resume and may or may not reach out to you. So, you kind of have to think about, how bad do you really want the job? Are you willing to go the extra mile? Are you willing to do the things that nobody else is going to do? Because if you're just going to apply online, yes, 100%, ton of competition. But like Alan said, it's all noise. You may never even get through the noise. So I just wanted to add that. Do something different.
No, I think that's great lead-in for Rachel's question. She often doesn't get responses when she contacts people. Can you talk about strategy? So I think, and she also said, thank you for that, Jay, because that's a great idea. But I'm all about that too, and I want to get your comments here, Ricky. But I would say, what's old is new is absolutely positively the case. I'm not a fan of being silent on LinkedIn. Like, I talk a lot on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And one of the things I talk about is, when I was first desperate for a job You know, I had just moved to Arizona from Florida, couldn't find a job. I was out of work for about 3 months. I was way in over my head as far as debt, school debt, you know, all kinds of debt. So I went door knocking. You know, I went to PetSmart, I went to Lowe's, and I went to Home Depot, 3 places that I knew if I could get a job, I would absolutely love the job and do what I could to, you know, maybe find something different at some point in time, but I just needed a paycheck. I needed income. So I went door knocking. I wore a suit. It was July. It was Phoenix, Arizona. It was not comfortable. It was not simple. And people looked at me very strangely, but PetSmart hired me on the spot. And I worked for PetSmart for a number of years, got my own store. I'm not suggesting go door knocking, but to your point, Jay, you got to do things that are different. So yeah. Rachel, you know, that the idea that Jay had is awesome. The idea that Ricky had earlier about connecting with the people on LinkedIn, commenting on their posts on LinkedIn, you do that with me, which I love. You're very engaging. You have a great way about you of encouraging comments and encouraging feedback in the posts that you read and comment on. Those things are definitely going to help you. You know, if you are searching for an opportunity right now. And I would just say, you know, lean on that kind of stuff, because that's the kind of stuff that differentiates and makes people stand out. Ricky, what would you like to add?
Yeah, I think everything you guys are saying is spot on. The hardest part is, you know, with not responding, right? You're a business development person at that point. You're a salesperson. You have to sell yourself to these people in some way, somehow. You got to get your foot in the door. And that's what we deal with as business owners, is trying to get these companies and clients to potentially work with us. So when you're talking through, like, how many touch points might it take? If there's a company and a position you're like, I am the right person for that, like, I really feel that in my bones, go after it hard. And worst they can say is no. Like, you know, they might get even annoyed with you, but that's okay. That's not your position then, right? It's ultimately just someone will listen to you eventually. You just have to keep going after it. And I know it's frustrating sometimes, but that's what you have to do in this market right now.
Yeah. So we're gonna do these for a split second until we get more questions. Please, guys, continue to comment, continue to ask questions. That's way more important to us in getting through our top 10 list. But I think we already covered this. You know, budgets are getting approved for next year. So, you know, right now is a great time to be interviewed. Right now is a great time to apply, because they know the jobs that they're going to have in Q1 or Q2 of next year. And they want to start, you know, lining those things up and getting the people hired. So great time to be looking as they're getting approvals for the jobs that they've been wanting for however long they've wanted. Anything else to add on that, gentlemen? The number 9 reason, nope. Recruiters are commission-based. We are money motivated. We are coin operated. You know, we know that our job is contingent on us putting people to work. So we want to follow up. We're not out to get you. We're not. You know, our goal is to put people in jobs and make sure that our clients are happy and make sure that our candidates are happy. It is incumbent on us for our livelihood to make sure that people are getting put to work. So, you know, understand that the commission-based business in which we all operate, we're all independent owners of our own companies. And, you know, we either have teams or don't have teams, but, you know, those teams are dependent on us to bring in money. We're dependent on them to bring in money. And all of that is based on our ability to stay close to both candidates and clients and move the process forward, not allow it to stall. Anything else to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people too need to realize that, you know, because of that particular type of setup, you know, we are brought in as, you know, the person that's going to not just bring them a candidate, it's to bring them the absolute right candidate. So you have to understand, if we're working with you, you are not the only candidate that we're putting in front of this client. And it's just the nature of the game. And so at the end of the day, you have to be the best. And so you have to always figure out, okay, you know, applying for this job, what do I need to do to be the best candidate for the job? Now, you're never going to know what the other candidates have or what they do or where they come from. but you always have to keep thinking, what do I need to do to get this job? In between interviews, are you practicing? Like, are you practicing your interview skills to yourself in the mirror? I know it sounds weird, but like, are you doing it? I think that's the thing that people get too passive in their job search. And so for us, I want the hungry person that's coming in prepared. They can concisely tell me what they want. And those are the people that are usually the ones that get the job.
Yep. Yeah. And I know that's on our top 10 list too, which we'll get to. Well, we might get to. Anything to add there, Ricky?
I mean, same thing that you guys are talking about. We are commission based. I mean, some are different, but it's mostly a commission based type of arena. And I think the biggest thing for what I do is I always want to make sure that I connect with good people, whether I can help them now or not. Because, and I know you guys have had this happen. I've had it happen a year, 2 years down the road because we had a good impression on a candidate, and all of a sudden a new opening happens, or maybe it's a same client or a different client. And next thing you know, hey, we built that rapport and we built that credibility with candidates. And so now we can come back and go and actually connect with them again and say, hey, I saw this other opportunity. You've built that. So that's the hard part, right? Is we're not getting paid at that point, but it's not always about that. It's always about, for me, it's always about helping others and trying to figure out what I can do to increase not only the revenue for down the road, but also to be able to help people now.
Yep, for sure. And we're getting a whole bunch of questions now, which is great. So I'm gonna take that banner off. We'll get back to number 8. Remind me we're on number 8 after we address these questions. But I want to help. We've got another question right after this one, but let's address Rachel's question here. I'm getting a 15-minute phone screen for a job that I really want in early January. Can you talk about how to approach a screening call strategically? And man, Rachel, 15 minutes is not a lot of time. So I definitely have some thoughts. I want to turn it over to my co-host here first, though, and let you guys address that. 15 minutes. What do you do?
That's a tough one, man. It's Rachel, like for that one, you really want to make sure that you're just building the credibility with the recruiter or whoever you're meeting with and just showing off your personality. And normally in a 15-minute one, it's very strategic on the recruiter's aspect or the hiring manager. They're going to ask you to do when we do interview prep is we have them write down a bunch of things that they've done throughout their career. We call it their work journey, to be able to put down, okay, I did this, maybe a difficult employee that you had to work with, or, your behavioral or situational questions. Write all the things that you've done over maybe the last 5 years. And as you start to write those down, if you've ever scribed or journaled, as you start to do that, more things pop into your head. You start remembering other things. We call it bringing things from the back of your mind to the forefront of your mind. And when you do that, you will easily have the ability to remember those things when you're in the interview setting, especially with a quick call like that. You want to be able to answer those questions very quickly and easily and succinctly.
Jay, what do you think?
Yeah. So number one, be you. Don't try to be someone you're not, because if you end up getting the job, then they're going to be like, who's this person? But the one thing I will say, especially on a 15-minute screen, you have to take control immediately. And what I mean by taking control is because it's only a 15-minute screen, take the monkey off your back from the beginning. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Hiring Manager, I'm very happy, that we're having this opportunity to talk. I know, address it. I know 15 minutes isn't a lot of time. So is there anything specific that you'd like me to focus on in this 15 minutes that will better help you understand whether or not I'm a fit for this position? If you ask that, not only is that going to help you, especially if you're on Zoom, I think you will see that hiring manager sit back in their seat and you'll see them just relax because they're thinking in their mind, how do I get the most out of this 50? First of all, a 15-minute call is a joke. Any company that's doing a 15-minute screen, they need to rethink that. But that would be my suggestion.
Well worth your time, Rachel. Well worth your time.
Yes.
And spoken like a true salesman, Jay. I love that. Spoken like a true salesman. And I was going to say the exact same thing, because I think in order to land an opportunity, in order to stand out if you're only given 15 minutes, you have to be more interested than interesting. And the way you be interested is by asking questions. 100%. And by framing the very first question, you're going to stand out. Like if you're the first one to ask a question in an interview that's only 15 minutes, you get them talking, you're more interesting right out of the bat, or more interested, to them, and you're going to be more memorable. So that's a huge thing. It's not easy to do, Rachel. If you're not in sales or you haven't had any sort of sales streak or sales training or anything like that, it's a difficult thing to do. And to Ricky's point, you want to be yourself. So you don't want to make it so that your nerves are, you're on edge when you're asking that question, but you also are going to serve yourself very well by doing it in a very natural, genuine way of, I understand the role is this. This is what I've been, this is what's been described to me, or this is what I read. And I know we only have 15 minutes. What's going to be the best use of that time? And what Ricky said, I love his prep. I have a very similar one where I say, you really should talk about your past, your future, and your present. I went and saw a Christmas Carol play last night, and the ghost of Christmas past, present, and future were there. They made a special appearance, but you can talk about those three things as to, where I've been, where I'm going, and what I'm doing today to help me get there. So if you frame it that way, it kind of helps you condense things down and make it simpler to just kind of describe. Then we got this question. Can you provide some guidance on how to leverage shared connections when scouring for contacts at a company that is hiring? Example, reaching out with, we share a mutual connection. I'm interested in X role. Would love to connect and chat. That's a tough one for a lot of people. And there's a lot of recruiters out there that say, don't do that because you're going to piss me off. So how do we address that?
I don't like that. I mean,
yeah,
the number of mutual connections, we have a mutual connection request that I get. It's pretty common. I always come back and say, hey, who's the mutual connection? Because a lot of times, yeah, you might be connected, but you don't even know that person. And they don't know me. We're just connected on LinkedIn. So what I would do is, instead of leveraging a mutual connection, maybe do a little bit of research, maybe on that hiring manager or on that company or on that recruiter, and pull some things out that resonate with you, that will show that person that you actually did a little bit of research into them, their company, maybe even the job, and leverage that in your connection. But if you're trying to connect with everyone on LinkedIn to expand your job search, you're one of many. So think about maybe doing something a little bit different. Maybe make a phone call. Maybe, like I said earlier, send that resume via, the old school mail. Do something different, because everyone else is sending the same message you are.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add to that, let me just one quick thought that I have, Ricky, before I lose it.
Yes, sir.
I think if you reach out to the connection and say, hey, can you introduce me to this mutual connection that we have? That's huge.
Yeah.
Just making a blanket statement, we have a lot of shared connections, is not going to carry any weight for me. But when somebody reaches out and says, hey, I know Anthony or I know Rachel, and they suggested I reach out to you, or better yet, have Anthony or Rachel reach out to me directly and say, hey, Bill is going to contact you, or Rob is going to contact you. And they're a personal friend of mine, or they're somebody that I've worked with in the past, and they're looking for work, and they thought maybe you could help. I'd appreciate it as a friendly gesture if you take some time with them. That to me carries, I'm doing that.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that.
Yeah, that was
Ricky,
my point. Exactly.
Okay.
So I was going to go down the same boat as you. So, yep.
Okay, cool. Keep the questions coming. We're on number 8 right now. So we're not flying through these. People are happier and more willing to connect. I mean, look at this. We're super happy. We're ecstatic about what we do for a living. We're doing this right now. We want to connect with people. There's holiday parties galore. Some of them are Christmas parties with, events. Some of them are networking events. I mean, this is just a time to get out of your bubble and go meet people in person, connect with people, and enjoy the season of much more charity, and much more willingness to engage and help where people can, I think. Anything to add there, gents, before we move through these relatively fast?
You hit the nail on the head right there. Talk to people, have conversations, real conversations.
Cool. Use this time to refine your pitch.
Are slowing down too. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, use this time to refine your pitch and presentation, like Jay was saying earlier. Practice in the mirror, practice with friends, ask people what your resume looks like. This is a great time to try A/B testing. This resume is not getting attention. Maybe this one will. So I would do all of the things that maybe you've delayed on doing while you're able to get people's attention a little more quickly, I think, right now, because there's not a massive people knocking down doors, because they're all thinking, again, the reason for this, LinkedIn Live, people are taking their foot off the gas. People will see your persistence and work ethic. I mean, we all have our own companies, so we're not going to not work. But we're doing this LinkedIn Live to help other people who think we are taking time off. We're not.
No.
We're working all clear through the holiday, and it's going to continue next week, and it's just what we do, and our clients expect that of us, and we want those kinds of candidates, honestly.
Yeah, I also think too that too many people, especially in today's day and age, are worried about being persistent. They think that they're annoying people, they're a nuisance, and all that. And what I will tell you is this: if a candidate's reaching out to me, I'm just going to be honest with you, and I think any recruiter that has a pretty heavy workload will say that, hey, oftentimes you're going to have to message me 3, 4, 5 times because it always comes through LinkedIn, and our messages in LinkedIn are 20, 30 deep. Sometimes we just don't get to them, or we forget about them. And I see so much out there about ghosting, and I think ghosting is the most ridiculous thing out there, because the follow-up question I always want to ask on ghosting is, how many times did you follow up with that hiring manager, recruiter, et cetera? Like, how many times did you do it? Because the old saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, still applies. So if you've reached out to someone one time and they don't get back to you, that's not ghosting. You just haven't put yourself out there enough to make someone want to do it. And I think that's persistence. I love persistent people. I will eventually get back to someone who continues to reach out to me, even if it's just to say, I'm just going off of all the sales messages I get. If they're persistent, I finally have to say no thanks, because I know probably oftentimes it's automated, but at least I'm going to finally be like, I need to get them an answer. And so that's what I would recommend to people about persistence. You're not bothering people. And if you are bothering them, it's probably not someone that you want to work with anymore.
Not a good fit. Yep, yeah. Not a good fit. All right. I've got, we're on limited time right now. We're on borrowed time. Budgets need to be spent. So budgets are getting approved. Budgets need to be spent. So before the end of the year, there are hiring managers out there, trust me, who want to submit an invoice. They want to submit an invoice to a recruiter or to an employee, an offer letter, so that they don't lose that position. So the budget needs to be sent, the position needs to be spent, the position needs to be filled before they lose it. Anything to say about that, gentlemen?
Yeah, I mean, we're in that situation right now. I've got a couple people starting the first of the year, and the company has asked us to invoice them before the end of the year so it can go on.
Same deal.
Yeah.
Same deal. Yeah, we got a request. As soon as the offer letter was signed, we got a request to send the invoice immediately. So AR changes like dramatically before the end of the year.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Anything to add, Ricky?
Nope. Same thing as you guys. Dealing with the exact same thing.
Okay. If you are employed but wanting to better your situation, you may have more time now. So if you are currently working and you're getting some time off, or your boss is taking time off, or whatever, you have more time on your hands to do things that better your future. So great time to apply, great time to do the research, great time to get things in order, and stay active. You got to stay active. Eagerness of companies to hire. I can't emphasize this enough. You know, everybody is saying, not just the three of us, everybody is saying 2025 is going to be a phenomenal year. Whatever the rationale, whatever the reasons, I am a big fan of, if you put it out there, it's going to happen. So 2025 is going to be an amazing year. It just is. So there's an eagerness, there's a hurriedness. Take advantage of that. Few others are, so you stand out. Everybody else, I mean, you look on LinkedIn, even this morning, I saw 2 posts before this. Everybody's on vacation. No, we're right here. We're sitting right here doing this. We are not on vacation. We are hiring. I'm going to a lunch meeting right now with 2 hiring managers at one company that are looking to hire people before the end of the year. Don't believe the hype.
Agree.
And then finally, to end on a flex from our buddy Ricky, staying active like not skipping the gym. Don't skip leg day, guys.
Don't do it. Don't do
Number
it.
one reason. You got to stay active. What, gentlemen, chime in on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak from a personal experience. I mean, you know, I started working with a health and fitness coach 3 years ago. I was overweight. I was always tired. You know, when all that happens, you kind of lose some motivation. And I can tell you right now, you know, being down 40 pounds and being in the best shape of my life, and that includes even when I was a professional baseball player. I'm in better shape at 50 than I was when I was a professional baseball player. And it 100% has a dramatic impact on the way I feel daily, the way I approach my job, the way I approach my family. And so if you're in a difficult job search right now, I would just highly recommend move. You don't have to go to the gym and lift a bunch of weights if that's not you. But the one thing I'll highly recommend, get out in the sunlight and walk every single day. Stay active. Get your brain going. It's going to get your brain going. And that's the one thing that I think is really important.
Ricky, anything to add before you flex?
Yeah, just no. I mean, the gym is my thing, right? You know, I that's always been my thing. I probably go 4 to 6 times a week. Still struggling on the weight side, so Jay and I may have to have a conversation after this. But ultimately, I think the biggest thing, not only just staying active with walking or moving or working out, but also with your mind, right? I think during this time of year, we start to take a step back and start, you know, watching TV, and we're gonna just lounge around because we feel like maybe no one's working. And if you're in that boat, don't do that. Continue to read, continue to listen to podcasts, listen to other things to not only stay active with, again, your body, but also your mind. And so that would just be the other tip I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we all know we are all active people here, and we all know that we take a week off, we take 2 weeks off. God forbid we take a month off. You know, that takes 5 months to get back at our age.
Yeah.
Well, at my age. So it's not worth it. Not worth it. When you're going through your job search, stay active, stay engaged. Don't take the time off, because trying to re-engage in your job search after you've taken time off just doesn't make any sense. Too difficult to do. But we've got a lot of great comments, a lot of people saying thanks for the time. So gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it. Everyone who joined us on the live, on any of the platforms, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your time and attention. And it looks like we're going to be doing this again at some point in the future, and you'll certainly see it posted when we do. Thank you all.
Love it. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.
All right,
Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.